I remember when my mom told me that her perfume L'Interdit by Givenchy was not only worn but also specifically created for Audrey Hepburn, and since then I became interested in what are the other signature scents of fashion icons that I look up to, and also whether or not they are still on sale today. Isn't it crazy that you can just pop into a random Sephora and be able to know how Princess Diana or Marilyn Monroe smelled like? And so I did a little video on Instagram where I listed 10 perfumes that fashion icons were wearing, which you loved so much it got to almost 200,000 views. And now I want to take you along and actually see what these perfumes smell like, where you can find them, and what is the history behind them. And so I took my little basket bag and red dress and went on a journey, and I'm taking you along with me. Now, as expected, some perfumes of this list were very easily available in any perfume shop, and others were discontinued decades ago. For example, Jackie Kennedy's perfume, which was also the most expensive perfume in the world when it came out. I managed to buy 2 discontinued perfumes from an online shop and from a flea market, and we will try both of them together at the end of this video. I have not tried them yet because I wanted to get a genuine reaction on camera. The ones that were still in production were from big fashion houses and perfume houses, and so my best bet was to go to Galeries Lafayette, where on the ground floor there are stands from different brands all in one place, so it was pretty convenient. Especially since the vendors were so nice and helpful, I got to learn a bit about the perfumes and the stories behind them.
I'm much happier though. I'm very pleased.
Is it true that you submitted a list of directors?
Now first I moved to the Chanel counter, which was one of the most popular. Chanel No. 5 is also one of the most popular perfumes in the world, and so I have already tried it before. The link to Marilyn Monroe jumped into the stratosphere when during an interview she famously said that she only wears a few drops of Chanel No. 5 to bed and nothing else. I will include a link in the description to an audio recording with her interview, which is so very sweet. The perfume came out in 1921 and it was the first perfume that Gabrielle Chanel created. She called it No. 5 because 5 was her lucky number. When presented with vials of test perfumes by Ernest Beau, her perfumer, they were labeled from 1 to 5, and so she chose the one labeled 5. Chanel used to show her collections on the 5th of May, the 5th month of the year. She really had a thing with 5. At the time, people were wearing 2 types of perfumes. The first type was worn by the respectable ladies, and it had only 1 flower in its composition. Mixing several flowers, or God forbid, adding musk or jasmine was considered frivolous and mainly worn by women of the demi-monde and courtesans. Chanel wanted to celebrate the flapper style of that era, and so she created a new scent for the liberated woman that contained multiple flowers in its formula. The top notes are aldehydes, ylang-ylang, neroli, bergamot, and lemon. The middle notes are iris, jasmine, rose, orris root, and lily of the valley. And then we have in the base notes civet, sandalwood, amber, musk, moss, vetiver, vanilla, and patchouli. I immediately smelled the ylang-ylang, which I instinctively associate with the number 5 now. Then it would develop more into jasmine and rose, and then you do smell that lily of the valley. This is not the first time I smell it. I actually went last year to an exhibition in Paris on the perfumes of Chanel. That was incredible. And I got to see this vintage packaging that didn't change that much to this day. The vintage version of the perfume, which Marilyn was using, was more intense on the ylang-ylang, almost smelling like pure ylang-ylang essential oil. It was also much less sweet and darker in color. Once it dries out, it was much less floral and more animalic and dirtier. So it makes more sense that Marilyn Monroe would choose such a seductive perfume. And again, this is something that we should keep in mind. The formula changes over the years so much, we only get a hint of the original smell and not the full picture. Next I moved to the stand of Hermes, and this one was pretty easy to find. The name of the perfume actually is the address of their first boutique opened in Paris. I thought for a second to go there and try out the perfume, but then I remember you can't just randomly walk into an Hermes store, especially if you're not a millionaire, or like in my case, don't even make the minimum wage yet. The bottle surprisingly had a funny shape. It had a bit of a curvature, and so it was really easy to grab and handle. The shape is actually supposed to evoke the shape of an Hermes square scarf in the wind. That's why you have that slightly curved shape. The main inspiration is the Mediterranean Sea and the Indian Ocean, the final destination being the sun. Fun fact is that at the address of the first Hermes boutique in Paris, at the top there is a secret garden planted in such a way that all year around there are only white flowers in bloom. There is also a big statue of a knight on a horse as an homage to the house's origin as an equestrian shop. The perfume came out in 1995, so Princess Diana was wearing it in the last years of her life. It is a very elegant perfume. The top notes are ylang ylang, orange, hyacinth, peach and bergamot. The middle notes are orange blossom, gardenia, jasmine, black elder and iris. And then in the base notes we have amber, sandalwood, patchouli and vanilla. The smell was just a bit powdery but very nostalgic. It didn't necessarily smell like an old woman, but more like someone a bit older than you with more experience, maybe like a big sister. Someone that would give great advice and be very kind. The first nose you definitely smell the ylang ylang the strongest. It's very floral but also grounded in sandalwood and amber. After a few minutes you start to smell more the jasmine and the gardenia. You have the orange blossom there as well, and then you do have just a hint of peach as well. Overall I really liked it. I think if I hugged someone that smelled like this perfume I would be, oh my god, you smell so nice. And I definitely could see Princess Diana wearing it. It smells like a daily perfume that would give you a confidence boost to go about your day and feel elegant. And it also has that vintage element. It really smells like a 90s perfume. It's a perfume in which you would wear well-tailored neutrals in the 90s minimalistic style.
I've had many happy moments in my life, yes. I don't think being happy is a...
And now I moved to the Creed stand and had a bit of a trouble finding the bottle because it does not have the name on it. I just remembered the shape of the bottle from the video and also got some help from the vendor. This perfume was created specifically for Grace Kelly, specifically for her wedding with the Prince of Monaco. The name evokes an explosion of flowers of all types. Later on, Kate Middleton would also choose this perfume to be worn on her wedding day with Prince William. Creed has somewhat of a history of creating perfumes for the royal family of Europe. They would also create jasmine for Princess Eugenie and Bulgarian flowers for Queen Victoria. Now this one I think was my favorite from Galeries Lafayette. It is floral indeed, but not only. The top notes are bergamot, violet leaves and mandarin orange. The middle notes are tuberose, rose, jasmine, ylang ylang and neroli. And the base notes are cedar, orris and sandalwood. It smells very fresh as well. The first notes you have are of bergamot, then after a few minutes it moves into a tuberose. It smells like white flowers for sure, like fresh green spring. It has a hint of that green acidity of freshly cut stalks. I could definitely picture Grace Kelly all in white in her wedding dress wearing this perfume, and it's more of a summer perfume than a winter perfume. First I was not so sure about how long lasting it would be, but I could still smell it after 8 hours. It's great because it's not too heavy, it's pretty discreet and elegant, but it does not disappear too fast. I usually tend to gravitate towards stronger perfumes that have more spice and musk because I love having them with me throughout the day, but this one had that perfect sweet fresh ratio that really surprised me. The seller then said that she was surprised to see me try out the Fleurissimo because she said young people don't go for that one usually.
He's a great man and a good man. Already he's of national importance.
You sound like Spy Magazine talk.
Then I moved to the Guerlain stand. From Guerlain, I was looking for Vol de Nuit, which was Katharine Hepburn's perfume, and Sous le Vent, which was Josephine Baker's, and I had trouble finding both of them. They actually had two stands, one in the middle of the coupole, which had a big suspended airplane on top, and the second one was a more simple stand. After looking and reading the tags on basically all of the bottles, a vendor approached me and actually told me that they have Vol de Nuit, but they do not make Sous le Vent anymore. So I was a bit disappointed. For Vol de Nuit, she asked me once again if I was sure I wanted to try, and I said yes, of course. And then she reached out into the bottom of a drawer, like in a corner of the stand, and got out that typical Guerlain vintage bottle. The name of the perfume means Flight of the Night, and it references the novel with the same name by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry that came out 2 years earlier before the perfume. It gives homage to the women pilots having a strong adventurous character, free and emancipated. And coincidentally there was that airplane over the Guerlain stand. In fact, their newest perfume, called Neroli Plein Sud, is the second perfume of the house that was inspired by the novels of Antoine de Saint-Exupéry 90 years later. The original bottle of Vol de Nuit was in a typical Art Deco style of the 1930s. The top notes are galbanum flowers, bergamot, petit grain, The middle notes are daffodils, jasmine, and spices, and the base notes are iris, vanilla, woody notes, amber, and patchouli, and cedar. When smelling it, the first thing that comes up is that bitter cedar smell, which was strange to me that it was not included in the Fragrantica notes. It definitely smells like a powerful woman because of those cedar and spice notes. However, if you push through that initial strong notes, your nose gets more used to it and it opens up to a bit of sweetness. You have the beautiful floral notes of iris and daffodils, and you have that sweetness of vanilla. And I find it kind of symbolic to wear the bitter cedar as a shield towards the strangers and only share the sweet notes with those who want to stick around. The more I was smelling it in the park after it got aerated a bit, the more I started loving it. It is definitely a very special perfume. Now, unfortunately, I did not get to smell Sous le Vent since it has been discontinued. It came out in 1933 and it was dedicated and created specifically for Josephine Baker by Jacques Guerlain. The idea was to incorporate exotic flowers to try to capture the style of Josephine. Josephine Baker is one of my favorite people. She came to Paris at 15 years old, was the muse of Picasso and the lover of Frida Kahlo. She was taking walks in the streets of Paris with her leopard pet and was part of the French Resistance, adopted 12 children, and was one of the greatest performers of all time. So no wonder she was a great source of inspiration for Guerlain. In this perfume, the top notes are estragon, bergamot, and lavender. The middle notes are green notes, carnation, and jasmine. And then in the base notes, we have iris and woody notes. I could only find one bottle on the internet with 730 euros, so unfortunately I can only imagine what it smells like. It's considered a subtle, elegant, chypre scent that is both aromatic and airy. The opening is supposed to be a short-lived and then turn into a floral and powdery notes. It is definitely a summer fragrance since it does not have strong longevity and sillage. It's a historical perfume that will unfortunately only get to live in the past.
Oh, there's a hurricane in Cuba and it's cloudy over Palermo. Things like that. You don't have to worry. I've taken care of myself for a long time.
I got very fast overwhelmed with the amount of people at Galeries Lafayette, and so I moved to a Sephora across the street to try out L'Interdit. Now, L'Interdit by Givenchy was created, again, specifically for Audrey Hepburn. At some point, Givenchy wanted to commercialize it, but Audrey was not a fan of the idea and forbid him from doing it. Thus came the name The Forbidden. The creation of the perfume started with the base of aldehydes, which at that time was the smell of chic dry cleaners and a typical perfume of the 50s. The olfactologist at Givenchy notes that without being sulfurous, L'Interdit evokes a passionate seduction. The mischievous side of the top notes turns out to be quite sensual in the end. The carnation is not so demure, and the clove, a burning spice, brings a clearly intoxicated touch. The top notes are pear and bergamot, the middle notes are tuberose, orange blossom, and jasmine, and the base notes are patchouli, vanilla, ambroxan, and vetiver, and tonka bean. The smell is very familiar to me because it's my mother's fragrance, so whenever I visit her, I adopt this perfume as well, and I wear it all the time. I think it really captures the sweet nature of Audrey Hepburn. This is a very gourmand perfume. The note that I smell throughout is the pear. It really feels like biting into a very ripe pear. But it also has a more mature side of it, most notably in its tonka bean base notes. It lasts for a very long time and it feels like a sweet hug following you for the whole day. This is definitely one of my favorites. Now, the last 4 perfumes were the most difficult to find. I tried to first find them at shops all around Paris, having to spend hours and hours in the metro to get to different shops. 2 perfumes I managed to find by buying them, one online and another one at the flea market. This is Joy by Jean Patou, which was Jackie O's perfume, and then also Jean Desprez by Versailles, which was Elizabeth Taylor's perfume. We'll try them together in this video. I kept myself from trying them all this time because I wanted that genuine reaction. And the 2 perfumes I could not find, for the love of God, was Jane Birkin's perfume, which is L'air de Rien by Miller Harris, and Dolce Rosa Excelsa by Dolce Gabbana. If you have any of these 2 perfumes, let me know in the comments. How do they smell like? Do you like them?
I like being in France because I'm a stranger. I needn't have to understand everything.
It's like being on the train and opening up the window.
The notes of Jane Birkin's perfume L'air de Rien by Miller Harris are supposed to be neroli in top notes, oak moss and patchouli in middle notes, and amber musk and vanilla in the base notes. According to the seller that said they had it recently but they ran out of it, god damn it. It is a very ambery perfume. The name literally means the smell of nothing. And Jane Birkin would say that she has always struggled to find a perfume that she likes, and so she decided to create one. She was also notably wearing perfumes for men, and she was sharing perfumes with her husband at that time, Serge Gainsbourg.
Non, parce que je crois pas que je suis belle dans le sens classique du mot. J'ai un nez trop long, une bouche trop grande pour mon petit visage et tout ça. Mais en tout cas, ça m'a aidé beaucoup.
And then Sophia Loren's perfume Dolce Rosa Excelsa by Dolce Gabbana has as top notes neroli and papaya flowers. In middle notes we have Turkish rose, water lily, narcissus, and amaryllis. And then in base notes, musk, cashmere wool, and sandalwood. So it should be primarily smelling of roses. I don't really understand what happened between Paris and Dolce Gabbana because I really cannot find any of their perfumes anywhere. And now let's try the perfumes which I am the most excited about.
Je suis d'origine française. Ma famille est venue ici au XVIIIe siècle.
Mais vous parlez un français parfait.
J'ai passé un an à Paris, à la Sorbonne et l'école du Louvre.
So this is our first perfume, Joy by Jean Patou. I immediately became fascinated with the history of this perfume. Apparently, this perfume was voted Scent of the Century in the year 2000, beating Chanel No. 5. And it was also the second most sold perfume in the world of all time after Chanel's No. 5. At the time of its creation, it was the most expensive perfume in the world, one bottle containing supposedly 20,000 flowers. It was created by Henri Almera in 1929, right at the beginning of the Great Depression. Even though very few people could afford this perfume, it rose in popularity immediately as the best perfume in the world and continued to stay like that for almost a century. However, the fashion house started losing in popularity over the years, and in 2011 it was bought by LVMH and had its iconic perfume discontinued, stating that they will focus more on the clothes and not on their beauty department. In 2018, Dior, which is owned by LVMH, launched another perfume called also Joy, but it's a completely different perfume. They just had the rights to this word for the perfume. So the top notes of Joy are Bulgarian rose, ylang ylang, and tuberose. The middle notes are jasmine and May rose. And then in base notes we have musk and sandalwood. So first impressions, it definitely smells like a vintage perfume. I'm not sure when this one was made, but it's definitely very flowery. It has that ylang ylang smell. It reminds me, I think, the most of 24 Rue de Faubourg, Princess Diana's perfume, I guess because most probably it's also a 2000s or a 90s perfume, this sample that I have. I definitely feel a bit of jasmine. We have the musk and sandalwood in the base notes, but I think the most powerful is the ylang ylang that is kind of overpowering all of it. I was definitely looking forward to smelling it because of all of the history behind it, but it doesn't smell that unique. It smells very familiar for some reason. I'm not surprised by it. It's something that I have already smelled before, but most probably because since it was the most popular perfume for so long, I'm sure definitely a lot of perfumes were copying its formula. And even though I have never tried this perfume in my life, I think the women that surrounded me when I was young were wearing perfumes that were similar to this. This definitely smells like perfumes from when I was little, like my mom's perfume or my grandma's perfume.
Well, I don't know. I have no verdict for myself. I was nervous.
And the audience?
I didn't fall ashamed or anything.
If Joy by Jean Patou is floral and sweet and elegant, Bal à Versailles, on the other hand, is strong and animalic. It's supposed to transport you directly at a ball in Versailles. Its top notes are rose, neroli, jasmine, rosemary, mandarin, orange, bergamot, cassia, and lemon. In middle notes we have leather, sandalwood, ylang ylang, orris root, patchouli, lilac, vetiver, and lily of the valley. And then in base notes we have civet, resin, tolo balsam, amber, benzoin, vanilla, musk, and cedar. If you just like me are wondering to yourself, what is civet and why is there a cute photo of an animal above it? Don't Google it. Seriously, don't. I just hope we don't use it anymore in perfumes. Now, not only was this the perfume of Elizabeth Taylor, but she also gave this perfume to Michael Jackson, which loved it and started wearing it as well. The scent should remind you of, and I quote, aristocrats in the castle of Versailles trying to hide their unwashed flesh and carnal pursuits under a heavy layer of scented powdered florals. Now let's try it. The bottle is also very cool. I also have it now in miniature because expensive, but the original bottle that is a bit bigger also looks very, very cool. Now this perfume is very surprising as well, and surprising in the sense that I thought that I would prefer Joy by Jean Patou over this one because it's more floral, less intense, and I thought maybe less vintage smelling, but I think actually I preferred this one. So first of all, the first smell that we have is definitely very vintage, powdery, old type of perfume smell that I don't necessarily like. I love everything vintage. I love vintage clothes, vintage music, vinyls, everything. Perfumes is something that I'm not a fan of when it comes to vintage perfumes, and obviously vintage morals and politics I'm not a fan of. And so it's fun to collect all of these perfumes, not necessarily for me to wear them, but to just like collect them and know how people were smelling at that time. Maybe it's like a solvent formula that smells very pungent and very bitter at the beginning, but once it aerates, it definitely smells different. So we definitely have that animalic smell that we talked about, but it does not smell bad. It smells very attractive for some reason, very, very seductive. We have those florals, have that bit of ylang ylang for sure. It's a combination of a lot of things. No wonder the list of notes on Fragrantica is so long, because you can't really put a finger on what you're smelling because there is just such a mix of everything. But I would definitely say it's more on the base notes smelling than on the florals. The florals are like just an afterthought. This really, really strong smell. It smells like leather. It smells like spice. It smells like a rocker's perfume. Like someone that is living a very intense life for sure. I love it, to be honest. Very surprisingly, I had completely opposite expectations of them, and in the end I actually preferred the one that I thought I would prefer less. So honestly, I loved all of the perfumes that I tried in this video. They were all very different. They're not necessarily something that I would wear personally, but it was such a cool experience to just learn about them and to also see like why they would be liked by certain people, like what kind of ingredients they would like. My favorite perfumes, or at least the ones that I would wear: the perfume of Grace Kelly, Fleurissimo by Creed, Chanel No. 5, which is very wearable today as well. It's a classic. And then I was also very much surprised by Bal à Versailles by Jean Desprez. I love it, and it's really, really cool that I have it now in my collection. If you have flea markets around you, don't hesitate to look up these perfumes that we talked about in this video, because most probably they will end up being thrown away, and it's such a pity because for just a few euros you can have a piece of history in your perfume collection or in your vintage collection. Now, which of these perfumes do you already own, and which ones would you want to try? Do you have other informations on perfumes of fashion icons? Now that I would want to learn more about, let me know in the comments. And if you like the video, do not hesitate to interact with the buttons below, and have a great day!